Who's the president of our association, Ruth Still Walker, who's our treasurer, Vicki Lauren, who's our secretary, and I'm Sue Agar, the vice president. And I'm going to turn it right over to Ruth to introduce Chuck, and we'll get going.
Thank you, Sue. It's my pleasure to introduce Chuck Martin tonight. He's the Whiting Forest ground manager and a senior horticulturalist at Dow Gardens. And he's worked at Dow Gardens since 1984. He was offered the position of Whiting Forest grounds manager in 2017. And he boasts, and I say boast because this is worth boasting about, areas of expertise in woody plants, perennials, rose care and culture, native plants of Michigan, vines, invasive plants, ground maintenance, and pruning. He received his bachelor's in ornamental horticulture from Michigan State. He earned a master's degree in ornamental horticulture at the University of Wisconsin. And he was selected to do an internship at the Arnold Arboretum in Boston, Massachusetts. But he didn't stop there. To continue his education, Chuck's earned an MBA from Northwood University. He also serves as the garden journalist for the Midland Daily News. And through his numerous lectures and presentations, many schools, garden clubs, and civic groups have been enriched by his passion and his enthusiasm for his work in horticulture. Chuck, take it away.
Mute.
Chuck, you're muted.
All this all again here. So let me share my screen here with you. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming out tonight or staying in and doing the Zoom thing. The Zoom thing, it has its pluses and minuses, and one of the pluses that you can all just sit back and relax and enjoy. But tonight we're going to talk about native plants for the landscape. And in talking about native plants, before I start, I have just a couple of stories that I want to share with you. And one of the stories is my wife's a landscape designer, and she was designing a church that her uncle went to. And he was very upset that she put in Amelanchier into that landscape because those are weeds, because they grow out in the woods behind my house, you know? And so there's a sense that our native plants maybe are weeds, you know, just because they grow out in the woods. And then what's interesting about that too is that in our visits to Europe, it's amazing how many of our native plants the Europeans use in their gardens. And they love our native plants and because of their long bloom periods and their beautiful fall color. And so things that we take for granted, they don't get in their native plants. And so that's I think is really interesting. And then, you know, being in the industry for a long time, when this whole idea of using more natives and the idea of invasives, it's kind of scared a lot of the nurserymen in the fact that they thought they were losing a lot of plants in their pellet. And so if you take home one thing out of this talk, take home, what I want to put across to you is there's so many native plants that we have, and the beauty of them that they're underused. And so by all means, that's what I want you to take through this. And so I'm going to give you a little introductions about invasive plants, and then we're going to go into the fun part about it and look at plants. Now listen, I realize I'm going to go through plants really fast, but the theme of this is the diversity of native plants we have, in the fact that we should be using these native plants more. Don't get me wrong, I like a lot of our exotic plants, you know, probably the plant that nobody could live without here in the United States is something called Kentucky bluegrass, which is actually native of Europe. And so there's a place for non-natives. I understand that completely. We don't have to argue about that. But we need to look more at our native plants. And when I think about looking more at our native plants, I think we all know Doug Tallamy's book and how he has preached using native plants and bringing nature home, and in the fact that how it helps our wildlife and the bird population, our native bird population. And it's really interesting. I don't know why, but people who like plants tend to like birds too. I've not understood that connection, but nature and plants seem to go along something. And why I'm recommending a book, Summer is Coming. And a great book for summer vacation is that talks about native plants and kind of the history of native plants is Braiding Sweetgrass. I don't know if any of you have read that book, but what's neat about this book and why I say it's a good vacation book is each chapter kind of stands alone. And so Braiding Sweetgrass is a good read for the summer. So let's move on and let's talk about native plants and what we got going here. So if I can move on here, let's see how I can move these. There we go. So what's the big deal about these invasive plants? And the way I kind of like to say is my wife and I, we both really enjoy entertaining here at the house. And we have guests here all the time. And what is interesting, I look at invasive plants a lot like many of our guests. There's guests that we really enjoy, you know, and I look at them as like the lilacs or the Kentucky bluegrass or the exotics that we really have all come to appreciate. But there are some people like plants that they're annoying, they're invasive. And so anyways, there's different reasons why the plants are annoying, and there's different reasons. That doesn't mean that they're bad in the right state, in the right situation. Master gardeners have hit a home run by creating the statement, the right plant in the right place. And one of our plants that is invasive here in Michigan is called Phragmites. And it's really interesting to me when I was in England, and there's this palace called the Buckingham Palace, and I guess there's a queen that lives there or something, I'm not sure. But anyways, across the street, they had Phragmites in cages. And they were trying to grow Phragmites in these cages, but the ducks kept digging them up. And, you know, and they were spending all this energy on it. So this plant that's invasive to us here in the United States is not invasive for them in England. In fact, they were getting frustrated. So let's look at why we should, what's the big deal about these invasive plants? And the first one is it's destroying our natural history. And this braiding sweetgrass talks about our natural history. It's written by a lady that's indigenous to the United States. Her background, she's a Native American, and she talks about this connection of plants with her culture. And there's this history we have that we're losing, and this identity of our natural history that we lose when these plants come in. The next thing is it's reducing our biodiversity. These plants are out competing our native plants. And so, you know, it's like a boisterous person taking over the room. So it reduces that. And so it's displacing our native plants, these plants that has this history. And there's very beautiful beautiful plants that we're displacing because these native plants are just way too aggressive. And it's reducing the amount of water, nutrients and space in our woodlots. A lot of these non-native plants, one of the reasons that they're so invasive is they leaf out before our native plants do. And so they reduce that shade. And so they have a longer growing season. And then you could tell a non-native plant in the fall because it will hold on its leaves a lot longer than the other plants. And so with that, it reduces a much light, water, and space in our woodlot. Some have hybridized with our natives and made our natives more aggressive. The one I think of very much is bittersweet. Bittersweet, the Oriental bittersweet has hybridized with our native one. And Bill Snyder, you might know him. He does not offer our native bittersweet anymore because it is hybrid so much and is so aggressive that he doesn't feel like we should be using even our native one in the landscape because it's hybridized so much. A lot of these not only are they aggressive, but they also harbor diseases such as berberis and wheat rust that causes our plants to suffer from that. And so we're not only bringing these plants over, but we have also brought these diseases that need this plant in order to survive. A lot of exotics contain toxins to our native plants. Probably one of the poster children of exotic plants is something called common buckthorn. I don't know if you've heard of it, but common buckthorn is taken over many of our woodlots. And its scientific name is Rhamnus cathartica. And if you know what the word cathartic means, it basically means cleaning you out or giving you diarrhea is a good way to put it. And so Rhamnus cathartica is eaten by birds and it causes diarrhea. And so the birds spread it all over the place. It's the X-lax of the plant community. So I don't know how you feel when you get diarrhea, but it is not healthy for our bird population to get diarrhea. Just a heads up on that one. So it's threatening rare species, which I think we kind of already talked about, and the fact that it's displacement in our natives. And then there's economic loss. If you go out to weed your garden, chances are most of the weeds you pull are exotic plants that are invasive. You know, we all think about how much energy we use just to get those stupid dandelions out of our gardens, but now people are starting to love them, which is great. I like that, you know, but especially being a person who enjoys beekeeping. But anyways, the economic loss, the farmers have to control these exotics, tourism. A lot of these natives aren't good fall color, and so the beauty of the woods are degrading, and then a lot of these invasives are affecting road management. So, and they're expensive to control. So, not only are plants invasive, but also we have insects are invasive, and a lot of times we know about these insects, and so. The spongy moth, everybody knows about the spongy moth now that that's name has been changed. The gypsy moth is no longer properly, you're not supposed to use gypsy moth anymore. It's not PR to use gypsy. So it's the spongy moth now. And we have the longhorn Asian beetle, which we're keeping an eye on right now. We've had good control of it. There's been outbreaks in Ohio, but they've controlled it well. And then we also have the emerald ash borer, which we all know about, and we have the spotted lanternfly, which is that insect with the big wings on it. And that is not in Michigan yet. We've not had any reported cases, but in Pennsylvania, it is causing a lot of issues there. But there's also diseases such as Dutch elm disease, chestnut blight, zebra mussels. These are all exotic pests that have come in. And so it's not only plants. So can a native be an invasive? And I think yes, they can, because I think of the black locust, the box elder, gray dogwood, poison ivy, which we all love, obedient plant. These are all plants that are really aggressive, as well as the Virginia creeper. So, whether you think about it or not, maybe a native plant can be, but we usually think of the exotics as the invasive ones. So anyways, there's a good picture of purple loosestrife, which is invasive. The characteristics of an invasive plant is they're usually an exotic plant, comes from another area. And so it's brought in, and we don't bring the control vectors such as diseases or insects with it. And so it kind of takes over. It's usually a vigorous cedar with a lot of fruit production. And so you think about that, we brought a lot of ornamentals in, such as your purple loosestrife. And if you got a lot of seed production, you got to have a lot of flowers. I don't know, do I have to talk about sex ed today with this or not? But usually that's what happens. And so, and those seeds usually have a high viability. And the seeds are viable for a long time. An exotic plant that is invasive is called garlic mustard. And a garlic mustard seed just sitting on the ground will last up to 9 years. And so high viability, seeds are easily spread by wildlife. The main way that garlic mustard is spread, which is kind of interesting, they found, is through the white-tailed deer. White-tailed deer will eat an area and cause it to open, and the seed actually enlarge or gets into the fur, and so it's moved around a lot by deer. And then also it could also spread rapidly by vegetative means. It suppresses surrounding plants by shading them out with early and late foliage, out-competing plants, and allelopathic. And I hope you know what the word allelopathic is. There's a plant that's called knapweed that's causing a lot of issue here in Michigan. And knapweed is only got a tap root, and so it doesn't hold the soil much. And so we're seeing a lot of erosion where knapweed grows, and it's very allelopathic. A lot of plants are allelopathic, or gives off a secondary chemical that kills other plants. Of course, the poster child for that one is the black walnut. But they're actually finding out that more and more plants are allelopathic. Even, I keep talking about Kentucky bluegrass, sorry about that. Even Kentucky bluegrass, they're finding out that they're usually low maintenance plant. You plant them, no insects or disease. They're hardy, they're drought tolerant, they're pest free. So what does a homeowner want? Think about it. They want no insects and diseases. They want a hardy, drought tolerant plant. They want a vigorous grower. They want something attractive, have lots of flowers and lots of fruit on it, right? That attract wildlife. They want exotics. I talked about my wife's uncle, that it's really cool to get a plant from China, Oh, this plant comes from China, I like the Kuza dogwood, but it's interesting because they want a plant that has a story. They want a plant that says, oh, this is a plant that grows in my backyard in the woods. They'd rather say, hey, Wilson brought this over from China. So anyways, that's what a homeowner wants. A plant nursery wants something easy to propagate. The seed are very viable or by vegetative methods. They're vigorous grower because they want to grow them fast. They're long flowering period because it's interesting. We buy plants when they're in flower. We get all excited about them when they're in flower. So the longer the flower period, the easier they are to grow or sell. And then we got long fruiting period because in few insects and disease. They're early to leaf out in the spring, and they have a story to tell, like they're from China. You look at that, you combine those two together, and exotic plants fit all, or exotic invasive plants fit all of those characteristics. So that's why for many years we were selling invasive plants. Now I got to tell you, in all honesty, very, very few plants are invasive, but there are some problem child out there. Just like when I was saying, there's some guests that come here that are problems. But for the most, it's fun to have these exotic new plants. And so I don't want to wipe the palette of plants saying you shouldn't have exotics, but I'm saying that we have learned, hopefully we've learned from our mistakes, and we have to look at the plant as a whole and not just the beauty of them, but how are they going to react in our landscape, in our natural environment. So what I'm going to do, this is the fun part, in my opinion, is I'm going to go through native plants and show you that we can create landscapes with native plants that are non-invasive. And we can create a very beautiful one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through a bunch of trees. And I hope that you take, I'm going to go through pretty fast because there's so many. And like I said, my hope is that going through these trees and these shrubs and these perennials, that you could see the diversity that our natural or native plants have, and that we can look at what niche we have to fill, and maybe we can look at our native plants before we look at exotics. So let's start with large trees. I hope everybody knows what that large tree there is. It's a white pine, our state tree. Okay, if not, I'm going to harass you. Okay, so let's start out with the balsam fir. What a beautiful, fragrant plant. I know that we do have an adelgid that's attacking them, but that's in a part of our state, but for the most part, you know, we use it for a Christmas tree and it's beautiful. I've got pictures of both types of fruit, the male fruit and the female fruit, but just a beautiful tree, brings fragrance to the landscape, and a great plant to have. So let's go to the red maple. Red maple, because of the beautiful red flowers. You know, this is a plant that blooms really early in the spring, beautiful fall color. This early spring, actually bees enjoy. It's one of the first plants that if you have bees, great foliage, few insects and disease problems, a great plant. So I'm going through these, I know, fast. The sugar maple, a tree that right now, you know, the sap is running, and a lot of people enjoy that syrup. And back to this book here, she talks about how the Native Americans honored that plant so much because it was a time of late, early spring, late winter, when food was getting down and they needed those carbohydrates. Beautiful, beautiful fall color. Now, let me tell you, if you live in Michigan, one of the things we have to appreciate is the fall seasons. You know, I got a son that lives in Hawaii, and we just visited him. And I said, you know, the ideal job would be to be a weather person in Hawaii, because you'd get up every morning, you would say, it's going to be 82 degrees with a chance of showers. It's 72 degrees tonight. And once again, every day it's the same thing. How boring is that? You know, how boring is that? It's okay to do it for a week or two, but it's the way. We have a fall that's just gorgeous. We should be so lucky because northeastern United States and a little bit of Chile and a little bit of China have good fall color. If you go to Europe, think about Norway maple. You got to be kidding me if you think that's good fall color. We had the beautiful fall color of the red maple, the sugar maple, and now wait a minute. I was talking about sugar maple, silver maple. We had the beautiful fall color of the silver maple, and also look at the fall color of that shot I took of the sugar maple. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. The sugar maple too. And then if you do like birds, like I said, a lot of gardeners like birds. A good bird plant is the hackberry. It has the fruit on it, and really interesting bark too. Kentucky coffee tree. One of my favorite trees is definitely the Kentucky coffee tree, because in the summer you get it's kind of a fine textured plant because it's got all these little it's got a big compound leaf with leaflets, and they all drop. Now I got to tell you, I go on tangents, so I got to tell you a real quick story. So if you look down there at the fruit, the pods produce a seed that's about the size of a quarter. And the Native American people used to play a game and with it. And of course, they would lose seeds as they traveled around. And so the archaeologists will use that Kentucky coffee trees to find where there was encampments of the Native Americans. So that's pretty cool, I think. So anyways, and then the honey locust. What a nice smelling plant in about June. It's just got a really sweet smell to it. Fine foliage that it's you don't have to get all excited about raking it up. You can let it blow over to your neighbors, but we do that for all of our leaves where I live. So the neighbors really love me. How about black gum, Nyssa sylvatica? Talk about beautiful fall color. The foliage is glossy, a real neat form of a tree. I love this tree so much that our firstborn was a daughter, and I wanted to name her Nyssa, but my wife nixed that one. But that's how much I appreciate this plant. And what's interesting about this one is it's native to Michigan, but you go around and there's so much diversity in the fall colors, from purples to yellows to reds to oranges. I got to tell you the honest truth, though. I don't want to lie to you. Many of the selections in the nurseries are coming from the South. And so they're starting to do some selections in Wisconsin that I'm excited about. But I've not had a whole lot of luck growing this tree bought out of the nursery. So if you see it in, no, I can't tell you to steal it out of a national park or anything like that, can I? Okay, so we got the red pine going. One of our native pines, you know, it's not growing very often as an ornamental, but I still appreciate it when I take a walk in the woods and see that beautiful bark. But you got to appreciate our native white pine. When it's young, it's kind of conical, but that middle picture shows you the beautiful sculpture it becomes when it gets older. I call it picturesque, more picturesque as it gets older. And then the black cherry, a good plant once again for wildlife, if you enjoy wildlife. The oaks, if you read this book by in any of Talmy's articles, you can see that he's in love with the oak. He believes that that's a big plant producing a lot of insects that the birds live on. And there's all kinds of oaks. You know, you got the white swamp oak, which is easy to transplant because it has a shallow root system. And so this is an easy one to transplant. The other reason I like it is I went to Michigan State University. It is the University of Michigan. But some people think that community college is the University of Michigan, which I don't understand. But this is definitely shows that God is a Michigan State fan, because the underside of it is white and the upper side is a dark green. And so every time the wind blows, it goes go green, go white. And that's where it gets its name, bicolor. So Michigan State fans are bicolor green and white, just like the white swamp oak. Okay, the bur oak, gotta love the bur oak, especially my time in Wisconsin. The bur oak is just a magnificent plant, really thick bark, and resistant to fire. And so we see it on the savannas and such. It's called sometimes mossy cup oak because you can see that acorn in the mossiness of it. The pin oak, in special situations, this is a good plant. You got to have a low pH. It's very sensitive to iron chlorosis, but anyways, more of a southern native plant for us. And the red oak is one of the oaks that goes the farthest north, and so but beautiful fall color and really a strong plant. Sycamore, you can't beat its bark, nice underlaying white bark, and then exfoliating bark. And so the American sycamore. And then the basswood, I really enjoy the basswood in June. And in June, when the smell and the bees just cover it, the bees just love it. And it's also called linden, is another name for the American basswood. But if you look at the seed there, the seed has a little leaf on the seed. You see the top of it? I don't have a pointer. I can't show it to you. Maybe I can use it right here. Do you see this here? That you'll see a lot of basswoods growing along streams. And so if you're a kayaker or canoeer, you might notice basswoods growing. And that's because this here will float the seed downstream. And so that's an adaptation of moving the seed in the water. So let's go to medium trees. We got the eastern red cedar. A lot of you guys might enjoy drinking, and gin is flavored with those seeds. So anyways, the red cedar is a plant. Now, if you do grow apple trees, this is a tree you want to stay away from because cedar apple rust will, this is the alternate host to that cedar apple rust. So you might want to avoid this plant. But your hemlock, I put that as a medium tree because it tends to be a kind of a slower growing tree, an understory tree, one of our few evergreens that will take shade. The white birch is an interesting tree. Of course, you know the bronze birch borer is tagging it, but anyways, it's a tree that is the most resistant to the bronze birch borer, but I'm recommending it more and more for the northern part of Michigan and not down. And I know you got to have a white birch and a blue spruce and a red barberry to be a true American in the landscape, that red, white, and blue landscape. But anyways, if you're in the northern climate, I would recommend this is the birch. For that. Maybe your gray birch, which is also native, might fulfill that white bark. But the river birch is resistant to the bronze birch borer. The biggest problem with this is that the bark, which is beautiful, when it gets older, it does that the older trunks lose that beautiful bark. But you know, we change our couch every 20 years. Maybe we could change our birches every 20 years too. The yellow birch is a fun one for you people who aren't married but like to date. This, I tell the students, this is a great plant to know because if you have bad breath, you can chew on the stems, and it has kind of a peppermint or a spearmint taste to it, and it will freshenize your breath for that. I guess kids this day and age kiss or something. I don't know what they do. So the Ohio buckeye, I hate to mention it, but it is also native of southern Michigan. But we could. I've already talked about Kentucky coffee tree. The largest, by the way, the largest Kentucky coffee tree is in Ohio. The largest Ohio buckeye is in Kentucky. So let them straighten that one out. Ironwood, what a great plant. Very slow growing, but once established, nice fall color, beautiful color, beautiful form on it. So let's go to small trees, the American hornbeam. Once again, fall color, beautiful bark. So striped maple, this is also called moosewood. I don't know, because the moose like it. I don't know if you guys have trouble with moose eating your plants, but I don't have that issue where I live. And so this is a good plant to grow. I've not seen the deer eat this plant, but the moose like it. But what a great plant for yellow fall color. And isn't that, you see that center there, that flower, this flower, isn't that really cool? Isn't that a beautiful flower? And then you get this striped bark in the winter. Really a neat four-season plant. The white cedar, of course, if you have deer, you don't want to plant this one, but if you don't have deer, this would be a great plant. Eastern red bud, you know, one of the early spring bloomer, blooms before leaves, and so it really shows off really beautiful. And then our flowering dogwood. So I joke with a bunch of our younger employees. They all went up to a cabin and they found a northern source of this, and I yell at them for not bringing me back some of the seed to it. But anyways, I think we need to make more selection of these northern range plants. So, and then this one isn't really native of Michigan, but I threw it in because I really like it. Beautiful fall color. It's the Washington hawthorn. And you see that fruit, the birds will eat that size. It's about the size of a pea. The birds will eat that fruit up for us. And so you don't have to worry about picking up the fruit. So here's another plant that has 4 seasons of beauty. Look at the glossy foliage on it, the beautiful fall color. And then in the winter, it holds its fruit. And it usually holds its fruit all winter long. And then in the spring, it ferments a little bit. And then cedar apple, or the, what is the, I can't think of the bird, the cedar waxwings. The cedar waxwings will come in and clean up the fruit for you. And it's a little fermented, and so they'll do a little bit of dancing for you and everything else. So they go to the saloon of the Washington hawthorn. The nannyberry, another plant. The biggest problem I see with this is it does get powdery mildew, but it has beautiful, but it gets the powdery mildew when the leaves are about ready to fall off. And so it might drop its leaves a little bit early, but if it doesn't, it has very beautiful maroon fall color. So you can see that we have a lot of different sized trees, a lot of different forms of trees. So let's go into the shrubs. I'm going to do the shrubs a little bit different. The shrubs I'm going to do to show you that we have shrubs with beautiful flowers. We have shrubs with beautiful fruit. We have shrubs with beautiful stems. We have shrubs with beautiful forms. So we're going to go through really quick these. I know I'm talking fast, but diversity is what I'm trying to push on you, and I hope that my fast talking does this. So let's start with flowers. Anyways, the first, let's go. The first plant that blooms for us here in Michigan is the vernal witch hazel, more of a southern plant. It is hardy for us in Midland. I'm sure it's hardy for most of Michigan, but the vernal witch hazel is in bloom. It will be in bloom for sure, full bloom tomorrow. So whenever it gets above 50 degrees, this thing starts to bloom very quick. Whoops, I went a little fast there. So another one that is fun for us botanists is the American hazelnut. I'm really bummed because I was walking around my yard yesterday and the deer have eaten up my hazelnuts almost down to the ground. I don't know why they picked on that. The hazelnut didn't do anything to them. Why he's picking on that? But you can see the male flower and the female. So it's a monoecious plant, and then of course it produces beautiful fruit in the fall for the squirrels. The spice bush. This is one of those plants that bloom before they leaf out, and they have really small flowers, but because they bloom so heavily, it covers the whole plant. And the foliage when it comes out is got a really nice scent to it. So anyways, the spice bush, the amelanchier, the serviceberry blooms when the ground is thawing. And so it's called serviceberry. I think you all know that it's called serviceberry because this is when the funerals occur. This is when they could bury the dead in the spring. So as soon as the ground's thawed, usually we see the amelanchier in bloom, and you can see once again it blooms before it leaves out, and so it really gives a nice show. Fothergilla is another one that will bloom very early in the spring, and then we get into the summer and we can see some of our hydrangeas. Our native hydrangea, which is a smooth hydrangea, blooms in the summer, and this is Annabelle. The variety Annabelle, which is a selection that was made out of the Ohio area. But if you look at this here, this is actually not a hydrangea arborescens, but this is called a lace top. And many of our hydrangeas you can buy also with the lace top. These are all sterile flowers, so they don't produce any seed, where this here in the middle, these are sterile flowers, okay? The Ohio or the bottlebush buckeye is a plant that will get really big for us, but here it is in bloom in about August. And then another August blooming one is the queen of the prairie. This likes a little bit more moist soil. And then the last plant to bloom starting in September and in October is another witch hazel, which is our common witch hazel. Okay, so I don't have a picture of the fruit of this, but it takes 1 year for this fruit to, I like the trivia, so it takes 1 year for this fruit to develop. And when it develops, it actually shoots the seed. So when it warms up, and so you can go out right now and pick the fruit off of this, put it in a box, bring it inside, put it under your bed, somebody's bed, and it'll scare them all night long by that shooting of the seed. So let's talk about fruit. So we've got red fruit. What a nice tasting fruit called, sometimes called Juneberry, blooms in June, but look at the fruit on this. This is Juneberry or serviceberry. And then you have red fruit in the winter, such as our Michigan holly. Will stay on about till Christmas. You'll see this beautiful fruit. And a lot of people don't realize this, but isn't that beautiful? And some people think this is a weed, but our staghorn sumac has beautiful fall color, beautiful fruit on it, and really a neat plant that maybe can fit some people's niche. How about the elderberry, the blue, dark blue fruit of the elderberry? And if you don't like blue, you're going to have red. This is the red elderberry that grows more in wetlands. But the only thing is this fruit is poisonous. So if you're going to make wine, you make it out of the blue fruit and not the red, unless you don't like the people that you're entertaining that night. The American cranberry bush, viburnum trilobum. Most of our nurseries are, if we're going to get cranberry bush viburnum, most of our nurseries are covered with the European opulus one, but the American one is just as beautiful. I don't know why the opulus is taken over, but most of our cultivars of this this type of viburnum is the opulus. And there's one that old-fashioned one called snowbush viburnum that's opulus. But this is, in fact, some people think this is a subspecies of the opulus, but it is native of Michigan. And then silky dogwood, I just love the fruit of this, the silky dogwood. It's really a really beautiful, beautiful blue color. And then once again, if you like gin, you can get some the juniper, the fruit of the juniper, which is blue. Arrowwood viburnum, there's a lot of arrowwood viburnum or viburnum dentanum. Muffin blue is, I think that's a proven winner, but there's a lot of cultivars. By the way, while I'm thinking about this, one of the criteria I did in selecting these plants is these plants are available in the nursery. You know, there's so many, I can tell you other plants that, but a lot of these are available in the nursery industry. And then the red chokeberry, and then the black chokeberry. This picture I actually took along Lake Michigan, the shore of Lake Michigan. And this is one of those, what do they call it? Healthy fruits or super fruits or what? You can eat this and it's supposed to be high in vitamins and make you live a couple of minutes longer. So, and then the red or the gray dogwood is another one with the right white fruit. The fruit will fall off and actually these pedestals will stay on and keep a nice red into the winter. Fall foliage, like I said, we are lucky here in Michigan because we have beautiful, beautiful fall color. This is sumac again. Isn't that beautiful? So this is the problem with Zoom is I'm getting all excited and I can't tell if you folks are excited or not. But anyways, the witch hazel, beautiful fall color, red chokeberry. Look at the fall color in that red chokeberry. Remember the spice bush I said it was an early bloomer. It has a very beautiful lemon colored fall color. In the bark, anyways, the bark of many of our shrubs, such as the red stem dogwood, the 9-bark, and the amelanchier. Look at the beautiful fall gray bark on that. Okay, so hey, I think what I'm going to do is just take a deep breath here and maybe answer some questions since I went through that really fast. Is there any questions? And then I'll go into some of the herbaceous plants.
We do have a couple of questions.
Should I go up into the question and answer or somebody else want to do it?
I can read them to you.
Yeah.
Patricia would like to know, are mulberry trees also bad, similar to common buckthorn and invasive?
Okay, yeah. The mulberry tree is considered an invasive one. They believe it was planted by car cleaning companies, and they want everybody to plant one by their driveway so the berries fall on the cars, so they're washing the cars more often. But yeah, in all honesty, that is considered an invasive plant. It's the white mulberry that grows vigorously around it. And once again, that is one of those plants that causes birds to become sick. It's very cathartic, and so the birds eat it and spread it quite a bit. And so, yeah, it's considered invasive. Hopefully that answered the question. It's native of China.
Diana would like to know, what was the name and author of the second book you mentioned?
Okay, I mentioned this here. It's Braiding Sweetgrass.
I think she's asking about Doug Tallamy's Bringing Nature Home book.
Okay, so this was like, Doug Tallamy has written a couple books, but Bringing Nature Home is Doug Tallamy's. And in this book, he talks about the importance for healthy birds, especially in the spring, to have eat insects. And our native insects live off our native plants. There's a word called co-evolution, where things have evolved together, and he's really big on pushing that. So Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy. So is that writing backwards?
No, And he's written 2 other books, so The Nature of
Yeah.
Oaks and Nature's Best Hope. And I
Yeah.
highly recommend all 3 books.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have
But
another,
this is kind of like his first book.
yeah.
And his biggest seller too. So this is really a good book if pushing that. So
Joe Wood wants to know if this presentation slides be available to download following the presentation.
so that's Joe.
Yes.
So hey Joe, my knowledge is free knowledge to anybody. So my email is Martin, MARTIN @dowgardens.org. You send me, just say, hey, I want your presentation and I'll send you this PowerPoint.
And then we had some questions in the comment box. Belinda kept raising her hand. And Belinda, if you could write in the chat box or the comment box, we'd be able to answer your question. Madeline wants, what about tulip trees?
Tulip trees are native of Michigan. They're more natives down by like the Kalamazoo area. A very fast growing tree. Very, very fast. So if you want quick shade, that's a great plant. The 2 issues with tulip trees, for some reason, they're hard to come by in the nursery industry. The second thing is they grow really fast and the flowers are way up at the top. So you don't get to appreciate the beautiful flower on the tulip tree. I think that's what some people call a magnolia, a tulip tree. Maybe she's talking about a magnolia, but a magnolia most of them are native of Asia. We have some, the magnolia virginiana is the Sweet Bay magnolia is native more south of here. And they're trying to find cultivars more hardy. They tend to die back for us. We do have in protective areas that one, but the Asian varieties of magnolias, if that's what you're talking about, bloom before they leaf out, but they bloom too early and a lot of times the frost gets them. So anyways, but our native tulip tree, which is Lindodendron tulipifera, is a tall tree. And in fact, they used to use it for mast on shipbuilding. So I don't know which one she's talking about.
I'm not sure either. Connie would like to have you restate about the red, white, and blue trees.
That was a joke. I joke around that Americans have to have a white birch, a blue spruce, and a red barberry. You know, when I was in college, we see a lot of landscapes like that. The red, white, and blue landscape is what I called it. And because that's what that was a joke. I don't recommend that by all means.
And then the author again for braiding sweetgrass.
Yeah, that's Robin Wall Kimmerer. I'll put that one up there for you too.
And Susan just put that answer in the chat box. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah. A lot of people have read that book. It's a good book. Like I said, every chapter is a standalone chapter. It's a different story and it's really good.
Okay, that answers everything for right now.
Okay, so let's talk about wildflowers a little bit here, okay? And I don't want to keep it too much longer, but a wildflower, people think that maybe it's not seeded, but there is wildflower packets, not a cultivar or hybrid, but now we're seeing a lot of nativars coming out or cultivars and then usually we think that they're native plants, but poison ivy isn't one, and they're not exotic, but a lot of people consider Queen Anne lace and chicory as wildflowers. So it's hard to tell you what exactly a wildflower is, but there's a lot of good herbaceous plants that have naturalized for us. And they're, whoops, they're not invasive. Let's go back here. So herbaceous, but there are also woody wildflowers, and we've talked a lot about each one of those. So the threats of wildflowers right now is urban sprawl. You can see invasives are also a threat to you can see a picture of kudzu here, browsing, plant poaching. There's actually people that are poaching plants, especially in the Great Smoky Mountain, and some of the orchids and trilliums and ginseng are being so. So I just want to touch on one of my favorite types of plants is spring ephemeral. So whenever I talk about wildflowers, you know, we all enjoy getting out and doing hikes in the spring. And usually we see spring ephemerals in the spring and under deciduous woods. And, you know, we have non-native ones, such as, I got a picture here of a non-native ephemeral called daffodils, but they usually have roots, rhizomes, or bulbs. Oh, and so they're very easy to transplant. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and steal them, but because they're so easy to transplant, I don't see why we're not using them more in the landscape. So here's a native just one of my favorite native sugar and spice foam flower. So in our landscape, so these are all plant wildflowers that we can have in our landscape that are easy to transplant, easy to grow, and usually easy to find at some place. I'm getting a dry throat here. Well, anyways, you can read it. I don't know why I can't pronounce it. Okay, we'll go bloodroot, spring beauty. These are all very early spring flowers. Canadian mayflower. A lot of people call this our native lily of the valley, but anyways, the Canadian mayflower, wild ginger. This is a fun one because you can see the bloom is underneath the flowers. So it's pollinated by ants and beetles. So that's kind of a fun one. Marsh marigolds, if you have a wet area. Dutchman breeches. Now, if you're a taxonomist, I know, but I'm an old fart and I still call it dicentra, and another squirrel corn and pink bleeding heart. Those are all our native bleeding hearts. The one, the spectaculus, is native of Japan and China, and that's one's growing most. But these have longer bloom periods, and many of these will rebloom even. So that's the difference. These are our three native. It used to be dicentra. I know they've changed the genre of them, but they all look like bluebeard lily. Not only has got a neat little flower, but look at the fruit on this too. One of the biggest threats to this is actually deer are eating quite a few. So my wife and I enjoyed an early spring camping trip in northern Wisconsin, and these things were all over the place. Really enjoyed it. Jack in the Pulpit, not only does it have a beautiful flower on it that's unique, I really believe that Jack in the Pulpit should have selections because the diversity of the pulpit is really quite astounding. Different stripes and stuff, but it also has a beautiful fruit on it. Wood anemone, the mayapple. This is a fun plant to have if you have children because they get to discover that both the fruit and the flower underneath the leaves, those big, beautiful leaves. Trout lily. This is a plant that's really easy to transplant because it has those bulbs. You can see that the foliage is gorgeous on it. And then we also have a native white one that's actually in a different species. The red baneberry, this one is growing mainly for its fruit more so than its flower. And it's baneberry because the berries are poisonous. And I don't know if this is true or not, but they tell me that, let me turn my lights on, it's starting to get dark here. So anyways, they tell me that the poison is non-detectable. So if you want to kill off somebody, this is the plant for you. And then a very close relatives of it is the white, not the red one, but some people call this the doll's eyes. So foam flower is being crossed with plants. And so anyways, the foam flower is a great ground cover with good foliage. So trillium. So Sue, I do know what a trillium looks like. So we were joking around about the trillium before before it came on. So anyways, the white trillium is late spring, early summer flower. And you got more than just the giant trillium or the white trillium. You also have toad shale. Star flowers are coming into bloom. Virginia bluebells, wild combine. Now, let me tell you about wild combine. You know, if you go out and buy our cultivated combines, they're short-lived perennials, but they'll sell seed. But every time they seed, they tend to degrade in their color. And as gardeners, you probably have already noticed that. But what's interesting about our native combine, when it it's a short-lived perennial, but when it self-seeds, it doesn't lose its vigor. And it's really a neat plant to have in your garden because it picks its places where it seeds. So it kind of fills in those gaps. And so you don't know where it's going to be from day to day. The spotted jewelweed is our native impatient. This is our native, and it's more in the UP where we find this. This is our native one. And a lot of people say the hawk, this is not native. This is the hawkweed. A lot of people think that's the Indian paper. That is not native, okay? It's a weed. So anyways, a hoary pecan. I don't know why people don't grow this one. Maybe it's hard to transplant, but this is a great plant. False some seal is, you can see that it has the flower at the end, the false one, and look at the fruit on that one, opposed to the some seal that the flower is up and down the stems. So you can see what I'm trying to show you here. I know I'm going through these fast, but what I'm trying to show you here is that we can have a perennial garden with just native plants that will have flowers in all spring and all summer. We're now in the middle of summer and we're still finding native plants that are in bloom, such as the bunchberry or another one of our dogwoods, and the Canadian anemone and the wild lupin. If some of you live over by Muskegon, you know that this grows really nicely along the roadsides over there, our native lupin. And it's also the Carner blue butterfly needs this plant in order to complete its life cycle. The blue flag, this is our native iris. The yellow one is an invasive one. So if you want a native one, the blue one or blue flag is our native one. And then pitcher plants, I'm a big fan of bogs. So here you got pitcher plant in bloom. And how about bearberry? Now this one for me, it's really interesting. It will grow on the sand dunes of Lake Michigan, but I have a hard time growing it in my yard. So this one needs a real well-drained soil. Summer flowers, cow parsnip. We have it growing in our yard, and when it's in bloom, people always want to know what it is. It's a tall wildflower, and don't grow the hogweed though. That is one that if you get the sap on you, it will burn you. So Michigan lily, the round leaf, another one of our bog plants that is carnivorous. Culver's root is another one. Now this would be about late July, early August that we'll see these bloom. The virgin bower, our native clematis. Not only does it have beautiful flowers, but look at the fruit on that too. So the wild bergamot, or how come anyways, the monarda is the wild bergamot, a purple flower. You know, your cultivars are red. The cardinal flower is another one, great plant. This is another one of those plants that you buy it out of the nursery. And I think the seed source is more of the southern seed source. And I can't tell you to dig it out of the ditch, but I can kind of put it in your head to do it. But anyways, our native cardinal flower, but like the Victoria, if you buy the Victoria in the nursery, you're going to have 1 or 2 years at the most. Where the cardinal flowers, the north, I think we should be looking at a northern selection. We've been buying wild type nursery at the gardens. We've been buying them from northern, and those seem to be living longer for us and self-seeding better. Butterfly weed, a good plant if you like monarch butterflies. Blazing star. Now, if you buy the native or get the native ones, you're going to see that they get really tall. Like Kobold is a cultivar of it, and it stays shorter. Tall meadow rue is another one. And so late summer, this is after Labor Day, we have the monkey flower and the goldenrod. Now I want to tell you, goldenrod is pollinated by bees, and the honey that comes from goldenrod is a really dark color. And it's very important for the bees to get through the winter to have goldenrod. Goldenrod will not do anything to your allergies. The problem is they hang around with ragweed. This is a good story. Don't watch who you hang around because they'll give you a bad reputation. Goldenrod gets a bad reputation, not because it causes allergy, because who it grows with. Ragweed causes allergies. Goldenrod is pollinated by insects and produce very little pollen. Go to Europe, and every European garden will have goldenrod in it because they want that late season bloom. Joe Pyeweed, if you like a real tall, there's little Joe, but this Joe Pyeweed is a bone set. Swamp milkweed, these are all late bloomers for us. White turtlehead, if you like kayaking or canoeing along rivers, this is one you'll find along the rivers. The gentians are late bloomers as well. In the fringe gentian, this one, the bottle gentian, will never open up. The insects have to drill through the petals in order to pollinate it. Fringe gentian, the blue lobelia, related to the cardinal flower, American bee balm, and the American aster. So we can have a perennial garden of just native plants that is bloom from right after frost all the way into October. We have things in bloom. And what's interesting about this is we're putting in pollinating gardens. This is what we want. We want pollinators to have something in bloom year round. We can just do it with native plants. And like I said, we have beautiful fall color. There's my email. If I realize I talked really fast tonight, but I want to show you the diversity that's available for us. And if you do want this presentation for the list of plants and study the plants a little closer, just email me and I'll be more than happy to send you this publication or this PowerPoint. So is there any more questions or any comments or I like to get educated too. So if anybody has anything.
You had a lot of great comments about thank you for doing this. And it's amazing to hear you again and how much you know and how entertaining you are when you present all this. There was one question about where you get your plants, and I just want to remind our membership, if you go to the MMGA website, there is a whole page that is dedicated to native plants, and there are some businesses listed across the state, including the UP, where they're available. I would also, since Chuck plugged Dovetail Me, I want to plug, and I don't know how to hold this so you can see it. It's not working.
Take off your background and it'll work.
Will it? Okay.
Yeah.
Doug Tallamy and Rick Dark wrote a book called The Living Landscape. So after you read about what's important to have in your yard, this book is full of information about how to put that in your yard, how to use it. It has great photos in it. So I just wanted to talk about that too.
Yeah. Rick Dark is a very good photographer, and
Yes.
we worked together on that, and it did a nice job on that in that book. So yeah, thanks, Sue, for bringing that up.
Oh, you're welcome. So, we're getting more comments. So I don't know if you want to share, Chuck, where I'm sure you use several different suppliers for natives.
Yeah, so what we can, we of course buy from wholesale nurseries. So we don't usually go to retail nurseries, but Bill Snyder is one of the great nurserymen here in Michigan. And in Mason, he has a business called Wild Type Nursery. And the guy is very intelligent and, produces really good plants. And I would go to their website, and he's a wholesale nurseryman, but I think 2 or 3 Saturdays in spring, he opens it up to people that come to his nursery. And he's in Mason, Michigan, I believe. And while you're there, you might as well go to G Farms too, which is right down the road, which is a fun farm to go to.
Very
Norm, you're saying yes, because while you're at G Farms, go across the street to their arboretum, and that's a fun day trip for a lot of people to do that. And then you can go to, it's not far from East Lansing, and you can go to East Lansing and see, I guess they have a nice children's garden there or something.
Chuck, the people that are familiar with Hidden Lake Gardens, a lot of especially trees and bushes came from G Farms. So
yeah.
Mr. G. Somebody was asking, now can you see the book?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's called The Living Landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good coffee table book because it's got really beautiful pictures. Anyways, Bill Snyder, Wild Type Nursery sells to a lot of places like our nature center here in town that have plant sales. He sells it to them. And then there's a real good nursery out of Ann Arbor, and I can't think their name, but they're all retail in that area. But if you go on and just Google Michigan native nurseries, you're going to get a whole list of them. And the one in Ann Arbor and Bill are especially good propagators of, they know their native plants. So.
Okay.
And then, your neighbor's ditch is good too.
Here's another comment. Tallamy promotes backyard national parks. Do you know any local Michigan backyard national park garden programs?
I don't know that. I was involved with an organization that promoted bringing nature home. What was that? Our conservation at home program. I don't know that program. I'm sorry that I can't comment on that. Maybe somebody can comment on that would know more than I do.
I can't answer that one either, Chuck.
So, sorry about that.
Well, if we have
That's what's fun about horticulture. You learn something more each and every day,
Absolutely.
That's what I gotta tell you, in all honesty, I don't like the word master gardener because I've been doing this for so long, I can't master this stupid thing, you know? I'm working at it, but I've not mastered it yet. There's always something more to learn, you know? And in all honesty, that's why I hate Zoom, because I can't let you guys yell at me that I did something, because that's where I learn. I learn as much from master gardeners as anybody. So I really appreciate your organization.
Well, we really appreciate you spending time with us tonight. That was really informative. And I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever heard you talk so fast in my life. That
Well,
was a lot
yeah.
of good information in a short amount of time. So
Yeah, well, there was a purpose between that fast talk, and I just wanted to show you the diversity. You know, that was my
yes,
goal tonight.
yes. Anytime I can hear you, that's time well spent for me. So
Well, thank you, Sue. That's a very beautiful compliment. I appreciate it.
I love that you were willing to present to us tonight. And it was a great kickoff for our webinar season this year. I would like to remind everyone to join us next Monday night, March 21st. We're going to be hearing from Heidi Grassman again, owner of Garden Crossings in Zealand. She's going to talk about new and exciting plants for 2022. So you don't want to miss that. And we keep getting questions. Yes, these are recorded, and information will be coming out later about how you will be able to link to the presentation. So in case you want to hear it again, I know I like to go back and listen again. Thank you everyone for joining us. Chuck, thank you so much. It's so inspiring. It just warms my heart to hear about getting rid of invasives and bringing in more natives. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks again, Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
Well, we'll probably invite you again. So
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Thanks.
okay, Vicki.
Mm.